go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
It certainly wasn't easy on Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium, but ultimately the Crimson Tide got the job done. A 25-20 win over the nation's then #1 ranked team, Mississippi State, improving Alabama's record to 9-1 and putting the Tide in the driver's seat in the SEC Western Division. And with that, we say good evening, everybody. Well, right before we do that, let's take a look at the college football playoff, folks. Because not only did it put Alabama in the driver's seat in the SEC West, it now puts the Tide in the driver's seat in all of college football. Which means if this stands up, Alabama will play in New Orleans in the semifinal, not Pasadena, and the Tide will play Mississippi State. Right, I guess it makes sense. If you're going to put the Tide at #1, you have to keep the Bulldogs in there at #4. Oregon and Florida State would be the other semifinal out in Pasadena. And with that, we say good evening and welcome into Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris. We got Pepsi next. Great Pepsi taste, only 60 calories per 12-ounce can. You hear it goes down smooth, too. Tastes a little better when you're #1.
Yeah, it does.
We're going to talk a lot more about those rankings in just a little bit for sure, so stay tuned for that. But Rod, we're going to start it off with the big game this past Saturday. Alabama against #1 and unbeaten Mississippi State. Kind of a tale of two halves, but the good news is on a gorgeous fall afternoon in November in Bryant-Denny Stadium, Alabama's first half dominance was enough to overcome Mississippi State's surge in the second half. Alabama gets the win, 25-20.
I think the keys to the game, Gary, were obviously Alabama's defense. I mean, what they did in terms of the 3 interceptions against Dak Prescott, as well as, forcing some field goals there right before halftime when Mississippi State got on the board for the first time, and then early in the third quarter. But, Alabama's defense just did what it had to do. And I know Mississippi State rolled up some points, and they certainly, they had 88 plays. I think Alabama had 63, but the defense did an outstanding job and really never bent.
Well, 3 interceptions were absolutely huge, and Mississippi State got into the red zone quite a bit, but their second touchdown, in all honesty, it helped them a lot, no doubt about it. But they scored a touchdown with 15 seconds to go in the game. So really, after Alabama went on a great scoring drive, which we'll break down in a little bit, Mississippi State, it wasn't like they really threatened to win the game. Alabama had control of the game the final few minutes.
And we'll talk about that with the drive. And again, that was another key to the game. And I thought it was really, when you look at this game, Gary, when you're talking about playing the #1 team, and hey, I know a lot of people said it's Mississippi State. This is a very good football team, obviously, and I think some people just continue to believe it was Mississippi State, and they kind of look at the name. But, this was a team effort by Alabama. There was a lot of key plays in every area of the game. I mean, you look at offensively, defensively. We talked about the drive. We talked about what the defense did. Special teams came up big with the punting of J.K. Scott. Once again, field position was huge. So I think it was a total team effort.
It was an outstanding win, a terrific win. And any Alabama fan that doesn't understand how good a win that is, in my opinion, you're truly spoiled, because that was a huge win against a great football team. Nick Saban was certainly happy about it and felt good about it, and he anticipated Mississippi State, the fact that they are a good team, having a second half resurgence.
We kind of knew at halftime when you play teams like this that they're going to come out in the second half regardless of what happens. A little bit like the Auburn game, Cam Newton game here. We got ahead 24-6 or whatever it was. And, they came back in the second half. That's why they're good teams. That's why they're #1. But our team's shown that they have an ability to do that, and we made plays when we had to make them today. And I think that was a sign of great competitive character from our team as well.
The win improved Alabama's record against AP #1 teams to 7-4, and the 636 winning percentage against #1 is the highest in the AP poll era. It was also Bama's first win over a top-ranked team in Tuscaloosa. Nick Saban now 5-2 as a coach against #1 teams. That's also the most wins ever for a coach against AP #1 ranked teams, 5. There were several coaches at #4, including coach, but he moves ahead all by himself. All right, Rodney, a lot of big moments in this particular football game, but probably the biggest reason that Alabama held on to win this game was a classic fourth quarter drive engineered by quarterback Blake Sims. Mississippi State had cut the game down to a 6-point margin, 19-13. Alabama, quite frankly, in the second half hadn't done a lot on offense, Rod, but Blake Sims took care of that, and is proving again that when the stage is at its biggest, he is capable of answering all the questions.
Well, you're seeing 3 big conversions right here on third down plays by Blake Sims. He made a great pass to Yeldon, the 2 big runs, Gary. Alabama, as you mentioned, it was a 15-play drive. 8 of those were called runs for 45 yards. People talk about Alabama's running game. In that drive, it came alive. 8 runs called. Now, Blake Sims had 2 scrambles. Those were pass plays, not really including them in the running stats as far as running plays that were called. And, you know, average 5 yards a pop on that drive. And I think that's big, Gary. They ran the ball when they had to.
15 plays, 76 yards. It really kind of sealed the deal. And again, I want to be honest. Alabama was struggling a little bit in the second half, but just like in the LSU game, when they had to have it, you know, playmakers make plays. And you can say what you want about Blake Sims, maybe struggling at times, maybe not making a right read, maybe not being as consistent as some people would like. But he is a playmaker. There's no denying that.
Yeah. And I think his ability to run and the things that he did on some of those scrambles in that particular drive opened up the running game even more. I mean, again, we talked about his ability to make plays with his feet. Gary did that against Tennessee. It was crucial on this drive. And, you know, he had some balls that were dropped in the game. But overall, I thought he played really well.
You know, Nick Saban's not one to offer a lot of hyperbole. We know that about him, very rarely, in fact. So after the game, when he said that this was one of the greatest drives in Alabama football history, everybody had to take notice.
It was one of the greatest drives, you know, in Alabama history, probably, to go down there and make it a 2-score game, you know, in the fourth quarter. The offense put a great drive together. Blake made 2 critical, you know, third down conversions in that, scramble conversions, you know, in that drive.
Yeah, you know, some plays began to break down, and Blake ran, and he converted with his feet.
Just wanted to hit the open guy. You know, if it wasn't there, find TJ or Derek. I can't remember who was in, and just use my feet. And just happy that we was able to convert them third down. I feel real good. I always feel good about third downs because that's what we work the most in practice. And Coach Kiffin prepares us so great during the week that we know that we're going to convert every third down.
Here's a look at it. By the numbers, 15 plays, 76 yards. The Tide used up 6 minutes and 7 seconds, too, time of possession. That's huge. Third down, that's the key. When you go on a long drive like that, 3 for 3. Sims, 2 runs, 1 pass, and as you said, the running game with T.J. Yeldon and Derrick Henry did its part. It was impressive, and it could be a season-defining drive, no doubt about that.
And you mentioned the time of possession, 6:07. Alabama really needed that drive at that point. Alabama dominated the time of possession in the first quarter, but Mississippi State turned that around in the second quarter and also was dominating the third quarter. And then you go into the fourth quarter, Mississippi State scores and makes it 19-13. And, you know, things you kind of thought maybe this game's getting ready to slip away from Alabama. They put that drive together, and it allows the defense some time to, you know, kind of regroup, and they made a couple of big picks, you know, there. So, again, I just thought it was one of the keys to the game.
All right, still much more to come on Tider Insider TV, including a look at how some former Crimson Tiders did on Sunday in the NFL. And the next name on Alabama's schedule doesn't scare anybody, but why Coach Saban says this week is just as important as any other. And coming up, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. 205-348-WVUA, that's 348-9882. Email us TITV@WVUATV.com or reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV. We're back with more of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider TV. Eddie Lacy just keeps on trucking. You see that 1-yard run right there. He had 69 yards rushing on just 8 carries. Also had an unbelievable pass reception from Aaron Rodgers for a touchdown. The Packers are rolling right now. Rashad Johnson, meanwhile, he's had a heck of a year at safety for the Cardinals. He got another interception, his 3rd of the season, as Arizona improved an NFL best 9-1 in the season with a win over the Detroit Lions. Here's a look at some other top performances in the NFL from Alabama. Dante Hightower, the signal caller now in New Orleans, getting it done. 6 tackles, 2 quarterback hurries, and a pass breakup. Mark Ingram, not as well as he'd been playing, but still 67 yards rushing, and also caught 7 balls for 30 yards. And Clinton Dix, 8 tackles at safety for the Pack. Well, this week Alabama has what fans and most of us would consider a breather against Western Carolina, but Nick Saban doesn't see it that way. He was asked about the team's focus and getting healed up this week with a lighter than usual week of practice, and his answer gave us some classic Nick Saban sound bites.
You know, I think the most important thing to do at this time of year is everybody stay focused on what they got to do. You know, focus is like momentum. All right, when you lose the momentum in the game, it's really hard to get back. All right, so if you don't stay focused on what you need to do to get better, it's not about the other team. It's about what we need to do as a team. In that, you know, us staying focused on what we need to do to improve and get better and take advantage of the opportunity that we have, rather than just looking at, well, what do we have to do to win this game? I mean, there's a huge difference in that. Huge difference in that. So if I said, what do we have to do to win this game, I might think, well, I don't got to practice too hard this week. You know, the guy's not quite as big as what I'm used to have to play against or whatever. So are you going to get better that way or not? All right, but taking advantage of the opportunity that you have is much bigger than that. So if we took the approach that, okay, we want to get healed up, all right, we'd have half the guys saying, oh, I think I get out this week because I got a bad hip. All right, and, you know, my shoulder hurts from when I got hurt when I was playing. You know, I got a separated shoulder, so maybe I ought to take a back seat out there as a coach. I mean, try to get healed up for the game. How are we going to get better? How are we going to get better?
You know, he's right. That's why he's a great coach. I mean, you know, you go out and, you know, lollygag around against Western Carolina and just think you're going to turn on a switch against Auburn. It doesn't work that way, does it, Rod?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But, hey, I do believe him when he talks about his shoulder. Because have you seen his high school video when he was a high school quarterback?
I've watched it a
Oh,
little
man,
bit.
he took some shots. So.
But I do think this now. I believe in everything he says. I do think guys, you know, like Yeldon and DeAndre White, some of those guys, they do want to get them some rest on Saturday against Western Carolina. Speaking of the Catamounts, their basketball team also in Tuscaloosa this week. Last night, Alabama men's basketball team welcomed Western Carolina to Coleman Coliseum. Anthony Grant and company looking to start the season 2-0. And tell you what, they struggled a little bit in this one. Preston Joseph and Coleman, though, continued to look good. He's so quick getting the drive there. Alabama worked the entire game, but the good news is the Tide held on to get the win, 80-74. Levi Randolph scored 19 points, helped by a perfect night at the free throw line. Jimmy Taylor from Greensboro, his first double-double. Ricky Tarrant, the transfer from Tulane, had 18, and Alabama right back in action on Thursday night at home against Southern Mississippi. We're coming right back on Tider Insider TV. We'll talk about the brand new college football playoff poll. You've seen that Alabama has already landed at the top. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information right there on how you can get in touch with us. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider Television, brought to you by Buffalo Rock. We'll return right after this. As you saw earlier, and let me state the obvious, we're all excited if we follow Alabama, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But right now, the Crimson Tide's in the catbird seat. If Alabama wins out, beats Western Carolina, Auburn wins the SEC championship game, they're going to host the number 4 seed in New Orleans as the number 1 seed in the first national playoff game, Ronnie. That's the bottom line. If Alabama wins out, they're not going to get jumped by anybody.
No. And again, it really doesn't mean anything. It's like we talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago when this poll came out for the first time. You know, people were kind of upset about it. Still, it's the same scenario. Alabama has to continue to win. They have to win out. They have to win the next 2 and then go to Atlanta and win that one if they want to, you know, stay at number 1.
At least they know where they stand.
In the top 4.
And that is at number 1. So got to keep on trucking. All right, let's go to the phones. On the Med Center hotline, first up, our buddy Joseph here in Tuscaloosa. What's up, partner?
Hey, what's up, cuz, man? Hey, man, now the Western Carolina game coming up. Now, are you think we're going to still out of 2nd and 3rd string a little bit in this game? Because I know people in this game ain't really selling out. But I know they're not supposed to take this lightly, but we're going to be seeing a lot of Jake McCullough out through campaign and all them in.
Right, Joseph, and clearly that's what I think the coaching staff wants to do, and is get control of the game. And Rodney, for these young guys, this is a big stage for them. You're talking about playing hard and meaning something. If you get a guy in who doesn't have a lot of playing time, coach is going to be keeping a close eye at how they play in an actual game.
Yeah, it does. It does allow an opportunity. Again, you have to certainly make sure that your first group takes care of business early, kind of puts the game away, and you know, allows some opportunity for some of the other guys to play, Joseph. I mean, but it would be great if that opportunity arises. And you mentioned some of the guys. It would be, you know, really good for some of the young running backs, you know, Tyron Jones or one of those guys, to maybe Alti Tenpenny. You know, to get opportunities.
All right, let's go to Panorama and talk with our buddy Plato. How are you?
Hey, good evening. I wanted to ask a question regarding red shirting and use the 2 players, J.C. Hassenauer and Hootie Jones, for example, based on the number of snaps they've played and I guess when they've played during the year. can either one of those by NCAA rule possibly qualify for a red shirt?
You know, Plateau, I don't think so, because I don't remember exactly which games. I know Hootie Jones has played in a few games, and it's been since the third or fourth game that he played. And Hassenauer just played a few weeks ago. I think it was in the Texas A&M game, so it's kind of past the limit.
Yeah, unless
in terms of the part of the season.
Yeah, I think so too. Unless some type of medical incident came up and they could claim a medical hardship. But I know people get upset, but sometimes that's by design. Sometimes they go ahead and play these guys, even if it's just a few games, to get them experience, because keeping guys 4 and 5 years is hard to do anyway. So they get their feet wet and bring them back as sophomores. And
those may be some guys that you could see if the opportunity arises on Saturday.
All right, let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk to CB. Hey, CB, how are you?
Fine. How y'all, gentlemen?
Very well.
I know it's a big game, but I just wondered about some of the drop passes. Of course, we're all humans. Some bad passes, some drop passes. And just wondered, Rodney, you probably remember Fred Biletnikoff and Dave Casper and Snake hitting them with it. Biletnikoff, you'd have to pry it out of his hand. We can't use none of that stickum, can we?
Yeah, you did have to pry it out of his hand, didn't you, Rodney? Because he had so much stickum on it. But I know nobody likes to see a guy drop a ball, and nobody's more concerned about it, Rodney, than the receiver. But in all honesty, they're part of the game. And sometimes, as much as we sit in the press box or on TV and say, why did he drop that? It's easier said than done when you're coming across the middle and you're about to get popped. Sometimes it happens.
There's some drops in the last 2 games, and I mean it certainly hurt. And I will expect those guys certainly. Amari's had a few drops too, so but you expect those guys to certainly play better down the stretch. And you talking about Biletnikoff? He used to wear that tape up to here. Remember that, with all that stickum? So. Yeah. Too bad they can't do that.
All right, more to come here, including an Alabama player is up for an award that a Tide player has never won, and a big hint. We just mentioned the guy's name that the award's named after. And coming up, more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information right there on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. This is the one and only Tider Insider TV, cruising along on a Tuesday night. Alabama's #1 in the national playoff rankings poll. We're back after this. No surprise here, Amari Cooper has been announced as one of the 10 semifinalists for the Biletnikoff Award, honoring the nation's top receiver. And I have to say, I'll be surprised if he doesn't win it. He has set just about every Alabama passing receiving record that there is this year. All right, let's get right back to the Med Center hotline and talk with David in Northport. Hey, David, what's going on? David, you with us? All right, David, we lost David, but he wanted to talk about Mississippi State not playing in the SEC championship game if Alabama beats Auburn, and I'm assuming how that might affect them in the college football playoff poll.
Well, I mean, remains to be seen. I guess it depends a lot on how some of the other teams perform at the, terms of the rest of the season, and I think that, again, there's still a lot to be played, and I think, Gary, one team to really watch is Ohio State. Oh, yeah. They seem to be really picking up momentum, and if they were to win out and win their Big Ten championship and all that, then I think, they may be a team that could jump up there.
They're moving up with a bullet. All right, let's talk to BT. Hey, BT.
Hey, Gary. How are y'all, Rodney and Gary?
Very well, BT. What you got for us?
Hey, Gary, I think we just need to concentrate on what we're doing, not worry about the rankings right now.
You're absolutely right, BT, and I guarantee you that's the message that Nick Saban is sending those players. It's all just clutter, really. You just got to keep on playing your best football, and that's all he's focused on.
Yeah, it does. Again, we've talked about it over and over since the poll initiated a few weeks ago. It doesn't really matter right now. It's how Alabama finishes out. And the good thing, though, is I'll say this, and I know you know this, but it's Alabama controls its own destiny. So they really don't have to worry about anything but how they perform.
That's right. All right, let's get to an email, Rod. And this is a good one from Ken and Jasper. It seems the offense has had trouble getting the ball snapped before the clock expires. Is that on Sims, Kiffin, or both? And Ken, that's a good question. And the answer is a lot of that is by design, because Kiffin's on the sideline. He's got communication with Blake Sims. What they're doing a lot of times is they're calling a play, then they're waiting to see the defense commit to what it's going to do in terms of its coverage. And a lot of times they change that play inside of 10 seconds on the play clock, Rodney. And when that happens, you're going to take it right down to 1 or 2 before you snap it. But it has led to some huge plays for Alabama.
And I think this right here is obviously one of those plays, maybe the touchdown against Mississippi State. Anyway, they've done it regularly. That was a 2-point conversion that missed. But the throw that we saw earlier with Cooper for the touchdown was a change play. So.
Yeah, so that when you change it that late, you take it down to the wire, but it has led to some big plays. The slant against LSU for a touchdown to Cooper. They snapped it with about a half second and got it off for a touchdown. All right, we're going to take a timeout, and we'll wrap up this edition of Tider Insider TV next with our game predictions for homecoming. Thanks for the phone calls and emails. Plus, we'll have a programming note for you on where you can see the homecoming parade live. Stay with us. Tider Insider TV continues after this timeout. It is a WVUA television tradition. The annual homecoming parade will be carried live right here and hosted by Lynn Brooks and Terry Saban, the First Lady of Alabama football. Coverage begins Saturday at 10:30 a.m. Make sure and tune in. It's always a fun event to watch here if you're not watching it in person. And that means Crimson Tide Kickoff will air at a different time slot. Normally at 11 a.m. We will move it up to 9:30 a.m. because of the parade. So Crimson Tide Kickoff at 9:30 a.m., then the parade at 10:30. Make sure and you tune in on Saturday morning for a great doubleheader, CTKO and the homecoming parade. Well, there isn't much drama, Rodney, in regards to who we're going to pick, I think. I think the only question is how will the scores, how badly do we think Alabama will win the game? You're up first.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to pick, but I went 45-3.
Well, you know, I did a little minor research. Alabama's played them twice. They beat them 49-0, 52-0, 52-6. So if you split the games, hey, 52-0 again sounds good. And it'd be great for the Tide to get another shutout on Saturday and make the homecoming a very happy one. All right, that's going to do it for the program this week. Again, if you just happen to tune in, Alabama's #1 in the latest playoff poll. And we are headed to dinner at Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. So come over and join us about 7:15 talking football. Thanks to the locker room, as always, for the great original elephant wear. You can check them out on the University Strip or shop online. And if you missed the show or you just want to watch it again, a replay tonight at 10:30 after the news at 10, and it'll be available a little bit later on at WVUATV.com. So for Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next Tuesday night on Tider Insider TV.